the strongest and the only way that we can learn the art of releasing anything in this world is by first having to go through a lot of things being taken away from you. And we call it loss, traditionally. And yet, it is only loss. The zine is here. And yet, it is only loss if we owned those things or if they were ours to begin with. So I'll repeat this. Assalamu alaikum assalam tazeen. So I was just saying that the only way that we can learn how to release things from our life is by first having a lot of things taken away from us. And when a lot of things have been taken away from us, we are designed to call it loss. And yet, it can only be called loss if we own those things to begin with. And to understand why we call it loss, why we believe that we own those things, before we understand the art of releasing them, we have to understand why we get attached to them to begin with, right? Because if somebody were to come and tell you, hey, you don't need your arm, chop it off and give it to me, you would not do it because you know you need your arm to be here. It has a function that it provides for you. And we feel in our attachment to those things in our life that those things are providing a function to us. So to be able, for us to be able to release things, we first have to understand why we get attached to them to begin with. And for that, we have to take a tiny step back. We're asked to, in fact, we don't have to. We are asked to take a tiny step back. And the tiny step back that we are asked to take is towards understanding what our ego is. And unfortunately, ego has been spoken of in very limiting terms. Limiting terms as in the one that has a strong identity and will do anything to preserve its identity. That's the standard definition of ego, the one that gets attached to identity easily. That's one limiting way of understanding the ego. But why ego to begin with, right? Why does ego begin to do that? The function and the only reason why we have ego in our lives is to help us keep us safe and to help keep us attached to something. Because visualize this, and I would like for us to please close our eyes if we can and visualize this. We're in a womb. It's a beautiful, nourishing womb where we don't have to move a limb or blink an eyelash for anything at all. We are perfectly provided, we're perfectly taken care of, and we're perfectly cocooned. And then we come into this world and suddenly we don't have that cocoon safety anymore. And when we don't have that cocoon safety anymore, in that cocoon safety, we know who we are. We know that our umbilical cord is attached to our Allah. In that cocoon safety, we know. And yet when we come out of that womb and that umbilical cord is cut, suddenly we are lost. We are lost from the point that we enter this world. And in order for us to grab on to anything familiar, we first grab on to our mother's voice because we can't see her, because we heard, and voices of other people that we heard inside the womb because they are familiar. So we grab onto those, and that's the beginning of the ego. Find something familiar to hold on to, otherwise I will drown. You see? You begin off by by grabbing onto your mother's voice and your father's voice or your sister's voice or your grandparents' voice or other people's voice because they're familiar voices that you heard in the womb. And then as you begin to grow up and you begin to get surrounded by more experiences, you again don't want to get lost in this sea of people and this sea of experiences in this huge, vast world. And for a child, as it's growing up, the entire house even can feel like a huge, vast world. And so does the school. And so we begin to look for more things to attach ourselves to, because how else we feel? How else will we be different? Will we be able to be remembered? Will we be able to be unique if we don't have these things to remember or hold on to? So we hold on to our parents. So we hold on to our siblings. So we hold on to our names. So we hold on to our bodies. So we hold on to our things. We hold on to our friends. We hold on to our schools. We hold on to more friends and then communities. And then as we begin to grow older, we begin to find more things to hold on to, all for what? Because we want not to get lost. We want these things to tell us who we are. Because if I am this person's daughter, and I'm this person's sister, and I'm this person's wife, and I'm this person's mother, and I'm this person's friend, and I'm this designation in this office, and because I am, this person on social media, and I stand for these values on social media, because of all of these, a sum total of all of these things is equal to me. And so these things, Madiha, for example, so these things become so important to you, because without it, you'd be forgotten. Without it, you would be nobody. Without it, you'd be lost in a rajeyoon. And so my children, my parents, my home, my clothes, my job, my career, my relationships, my health, my cupboard, my bag, my social media handle, my password, my phone. There's a lot of my, and my is a beautiful thing because it helps us to not drown. But it only helps us to not drown when we haven't learned how to swim. So ego has a beautiful, beautiful role to play. It keeps us adrift in that sea. But once we learn or begin to learn how to swim, which is where most of us are in our lives, we don't need to hold on to a float anymore. We don't need to hold on to a float anymore, because we are beginning to see how it feels like to swim in the current, to use our arms or our wings. And then now is the time, when we have begun to learn to swim, that we can let go or begin to let go of these attachments. Now, here's the thing though, we have spent a lifetime being attached to these things. And we have been taught to measure our worth through these attachments as well. There are formulas that we have grown up with. And these formulas have taught us that if you do this and this, you will be a good person. If you do this and this, you will be a kind person. If you do this and this, you will be a wealthy person. If this and this is happening, that means you're a successful person. If you are tick marking this, you're a successful mother or a successful individual. So we have all these yardsticks, these attachments that we're surrounded by, जिसमें कहा है कि ये सारी जो 8 या 9 parameters हैं is equal to who I am and will make me worthy, and therefore I must either hold on to them or fix them if they're not working, or really invest a lot of my time and energy in them, because that's equal to me feeling safe. That's equal to me. All of these attachments is equal to Madiha. Now, why are we calling them attachments to begin with? Because all the myths that we attach to our things, including our breath, they're not ours. And the most powerful ayah in Quran that tells us that it's not ours is innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. It is that. It is as simple as that. And as hard as that. But as simple as that. Because we only hold on to things when we feel like वो हमारी है और हमने वो generate की. But, and I mean all things. I mean people that we love. I mean things that we love. I mean the ideas of ourselves that we love. I mean the pasts that we love as well. Because I was having this very beautiful discussion with a friend of mine, and she was saying, we were talking about how she had enrolled in a course. And I think Sophie, it was you. So she'd enrolled in a course where this guy was giving out, he'd found the cure for cancer. And he was giving out free, because he wanted to have that trial group. So he was giving out free, like it was supposed to be a little bit costly, but he's saying, मैं आपको free में treat करूँगा. Just come into my, sign up for my group. And the people were not signing up. They were not. And so he asked them, he's like, what's stopping you or what's happening? So after a little bit of survey, what he understood, what he realized was that people are attached to their diseases as well. They don't want to get better because that disease, whatever that disease is, whether it's a physical disease or an emotional disease, a physical trauma or an emotional trauma, we end up getting attached even to our pain because that's all we have known. Because if you take away my story of physical abuse, if you take away my story of emotional abuse, if you take away you've taken away my whole life. You asking me to attach, when you ask me to release my past, you asking me to release my whole identity. And that's the scariest place to be in. Because if you had no story of loss to tell, if you had no story of pain to tell, if you had no story of dis-ease to tell, and how difficult our life has been, if you don't have that story, which story will you tell? Who are you without your stories? And that's why releasing is not just difficult at a psychological level, it's difficult at a physiological, psychological, heart and soul level, because without it, it feels like हमने ऊपर अपने चादरें पहनी हुई हैं, चाहे वो अच्छी हैं या हम लोग उनको, whether it's चादरें of pain or चादरें of beautiful things, but all these चादरें that we love, अगर हम लोग वो सारी चादरें उतार दें तो हम कौन हैं? Without all of these चादरें जिनको हमने नाम दी, who are we then? And we don't know that. Because that's why we are so afraid. The reason why we don't know that, because it does come, it's valid, it comes with so much fear, because what's underneath is a naked, vulnerable self who has no idea who she is and who has no idea where she must go from here. So I remember at the time, just about a few months ago, when I started practicing releasing, because I have been a strong attacher to my past. मुझे चाहिए था, and I wouldn't call it at that stage a victim mentality, but it was a victim mentality, but I wouldn't call it at that, right? Because I didn't realize it. But I wanted people in my life to be villains. They had to be villains, you see, because without them being villains, who am I and where do I go from here if I have no one else to blame? And so a very basic practice, when I asked Allah Ta'ala, said, मुझे नहीं पता कैसे release करना, was such a beautiful practice that Allah Ta'ala gave to me, a 5-minute visualization. A 5-minute visualization, which was, I used to take 3 deep breaths, inhale and exhale all 3 through the nose. I love this kind of breath. I don't know what it's called, but inhale through the nose and exhale through the nose. 3 deep breaths. And then I would visualize absolute blackness, absolute darkness all around me. बिल्कुल घुप अंधेरा. And beach mein, I would visualize myself as a small, tiny blinking dot. Just a small, tiny blinking in that ghup andhera. And then I would say, okay, this tiny dot has just opened her eyes. The tiny dot has just opened. She's just been born right now. Right now. She's just been born. Abhi. And when you've just been born, you have no past, you have no future, you've just been born. And if I've just been born and I now begin to look at, so मैं सिर्फ ये कहती थी मैं अभी पैदा हुई और आप एकदम से देखो बाहर. And I would give myself this exercise. मैं अगर गाड़ी में होती थी तभी मैं usually गाड़ी में ये practice करती. अब बाहर देखो, look, it's a green thing. What is it called? And I know it's called a tree, but the greenness of that thing, because I've just been born, is a pleasure to witness. It feels like a disconnected exercise from releasing, right? No. You are practicing what it is to be born as a new being in every moment, so that you are teaching your mind not to get attached itself to things for a long time. Because, for example, if you do this practice 5 or 6 times a day, and the idea is to train your brain to expect the unexpected, कि इसने दोबारा कब पैदा होने लगी है. Literally, that's the cue that you're giving to your brain right now. I don't know when she's going to be, I can't attach myself to anything, तो मुझे नहीं पता इसने कब पैदा हो जाने, फिर दोबारा से नई चीजें शुरू होगी. So the brain has to get into the practice of reactivating from a new self over time. And I swear to God, what happened as a result was that my brain refused to attach its worth and attach its attachment to anything for a long time. अगर मुझे कोई बहुत ज़रूर का बहुत एक sale लगेंगे, and I really, really want this kurta. And I have so many kurtas in my life, right? But I really want this kurta. So I would practice my brain to be born again. And in a couple of days, I would not even want that kurta, because there are other things which have happened in my rebirth. So we start small. We start small by teaching our brain not to be attached to anything for a long time, because we are being born and we are giving getting new opportunities to be born again. We're teaching ourselves to be born again in every moment. And the reason why this works is because the only reason why we hold on to one thing, say I'm holding on to myself being a mother, and I'm really holding on to my children. The only reason I'm holding on to that one thing very, very strongly, and I've always have, is because I have no hope that this thing will ever change. By this thing, I mean my life will ever change. There is no vision or no view of the fact that I will be anything else other than only a mother. Just giving you an example. And so my entire identity is based on being a mother, because कोई और चीज मेरी जिंदगी में कभी change नहीं होगी, because I feel that this is going to stay with me forever. And that's exactly the same principle that we bring to our relationships. If, for example, we get married and inshallah, may Allah Ta'ala sustain our partnerships and our marriages for an entire life and make them to be full of barakah. But even with our marriage, even with our children, even if you don't marry, even if the children who we've given birth to, we feel that this is a rishta of a lifetime, that will stay here like this for a lifetime. And there is no other space for you to be anywhere else. And therefore, you have to invest a lot in this rishta, invest a lot, because it'll be exactly like this for a lifetime. And yet it is never going to be there for a lifetime, because your children will change, they will have their own choice, and they'll make their own choice, and they will go away. And then you will get the shock of your life. And then when you're not just a mother, then who are you? So when we prepare ourselves to release things as they come to us, in the moment that they come to us. For example, if you have received a very vain example I'll give. If you've just gotten a manicure and you know that it's going to get chipped very, very quickly. You know it because your experience has taught you that. So at the time of you getting the manicure, when your nails are perfect and shiny, what do you say? Innalahe wa, innalahe rajeyoon. From Allah, that it has come from my Allah, and it must it has come in 11, and it has come from my Allah, and it's going to go back to me. So at the time of receiving is the time that we give ourselves to release it as well, in the same moment. And again, as I said, it's not something that comes easily. It does come with practice. And the practice starts with teaching our mind to be reborn unexpectedly 3 or 4 or 5 times in a day. But the beautiful thing is, and I was having this conversation, I don't know if she's with a friend of mine who's not on call right now. Yes, I was having this conversation and I said, and she said, okay, how do you do it? How does this work for you? And I said, innalahe wa, innalahe rajeyoon, what it teaches us is that when you're clear on what your destination is, and when your focus is on that day, when not your father, not your mother, not your child who you've born and you've carried in your womb, not your best friends, not your most looked up at leaders, spiritual or otherwise religious, none of them, कोई भी आपके लिए गवाही नहीं देगा. कोई भी आपके लिए गवाही नहीं. And so much so कि आपके अपने जो body parts हैं, if they've not been treated well, वो आपके against गवाही. कुछ भी आपका नहीं है. In that moment, कुछ भी आपका नहीं है. आपके हाथ, आपका मुंह, आपकी आंख, आपका कान, आपकी ज़बान will testify for or against. ये भी आप, it will nothing in that moment. And visualize that moment. Nothing in that moment will support you except for what you've done. Not the amount of hours that you've spent and years that you've spent. Nothing will testify or support you except for what you've done, except for your amal. And so if your focus is that, and what that moment teaches you, of course, is many things. But what I took from that moment is I own nothing. I don't own my body. I don't own my breath. I don't own my eyesight. I don't own my gifts. I don't own anything. When I don't own anything, तो इतरा कितना है इसके किस चीज़ के ऊपर है सबसे पहले तो किस चीज़ का आपकी मतलब what are you so proud of to begin with? But also, when you own nothing, then you lose nothing. No, it's like when you're traveling through a town and you check into a hotel for 5 days, and in this hotel, you can't even bring your clothes. Say you check into a hotel where even there's some beautiful AI hotel, right? Which knows the size of your clothes, it knows your needs, it knows your wants, whatever. But you check into the hotel while traveling and passing through that town, and that hotel will provide you everything that you need, and you're carrying nothing on your back. And when, however long you stay in that hotel, you are still a guest there. And it is still a hotel. No matter how many beautiful people you meet in that hotel, even if you fall in love and get married and have children in that hotel, it is still a hotel. It is not your destination. You're meant to leave that place. And so when you own nothing, तो obviously pride किस चीज़ का है, but when you own nothing, then you lose nothing when it goes away. When it goes away, not if it goes away. So why not get into the practice of this one thing कि ये मेरा तो कुछ है ही नहीं, जब मेरा कुछ है ही नहीं, जिसने दिया है उसके पास वापस चला. It has two aspects to it. One, of course, it teaches us that what we call loss is a return. Innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. It is a return. What we call loss, because loss feels like you have a beautiful jewel-encrusted pouch and you've put it into the river. That's what loss feels like. It's gone. It's gone. That's what loss is. But when something beautiful that you have is returned, look at where it's returned to. It's returned to the owner who keeps no debts. Innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon is not a finite one-way visualizes. It's not a finite one-way flow. It is the infinity flow. Innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. Innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. Keeps coming from your creator, keeps going back to your creator, keeps coming from your creator, keeps going back. Feel into the beautiful infinity nature of this flow. It's a continuous, beautiful flow. Innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. Innalahe, because the reason, the place, the origin that it's returning to, the origin of your creator is the one who keeps no debts, who does not hoard, who does not take things, who does not keep things. He holds those things momentarily and gives them back to you, holds those things momentarily and gives them back to you. But it feels like a loss when we say कि ये मेरा है. But if we, and again, I want to visualize, because all of these visualizations have helped me immensely. I can talk it through and I can talk about it and you can, but your hearts will receive this. I promise your hearts will receive this. Begin to just visualize कि हम जो एक solid mass अपने आप को समझते हैं, जो हड्डियों और गोश्त के लोथड़े हैं. If we for a while suspend that belief and we instead look at ourselves as energetic selves, which means कि ये see through है, उसमें चीजें आ और जा सकती हैं, which means that we're like portals, जिसके अंदर mass नहीं है. We are portals of energy. In those portals of energy, there are things that are going to come through us and it's going to go back through us. Keep things that's going to come through us and things which are going to go back through us. So we are only portals, energetic portals, which are allowing things to come through us and allowing things to go back through us. Where it's coming and why are we allowing ourselves to be this beautiful energetic portals? Because हमारी नजर किधर है? अगर हम लोग यहाँ खड़े हैं और हम लोग एनर्जेटिक पोर्टल्स हैं जो सी थ्रू हैं एनर्जी और उसके अंदर से चीज़ें गुजर भी सक रही हैं और वापस भी आ रही हैं, वो कहाँ जा रही हैं और हमारी नज़र किधर? Why are we standing here so content? Why are we standing here so beautifully at peace and in stillness. Why? हमारी नजर हमारे रब के ऊपर है, वो उन्हीं से चीजें आ रही हैं और वो उन्हीं की तरफ वापस जा रही हैं। वो होता नहीं है कि जिस वक्त say you've taken your child to a crazy scary joyride and the child, or maybe it's a glass bridge, right? You've taken and you did that because it was meant to be fun. So you're holding your child's hand, walking across that drawbridge, glass bridge, जिसके नीचे जो है सब because glass है, नीचे सारी depth नजर आ रही है. And when your child gets scared, what do you say to her or him? Hey, keep looking at me. Keep your eyes here. Keep your eyes here. No need to look over there. Keep your eyes here. Keep your eyes here. That's what you say to your child, right? इधर उधर मत देखो. And so what is our practice then? What is the entire practice of being, I'm going to air quote this, spiritual? There's no practice of being spiritual. But if it could be condensed down to one, it is कि मेरी नज़र मेरे रब के हो. That's it. मुझे सिर्फ वो, my नज़र, he's holding, it's he, she, however you identify with him, he is holding my gaze. And in him holding my gaze, I can allow myself to have no mask. I can allow myself to be see-through. I can allow, and I literally allow myself कि जो चीज़ अल्लाह की तरफ से आ रही है वो आती रहे और जो अल्लाह ताला की तरफ जा रही है वो जाती रहे, क्योंकि मुझे उसका origin भी नज़र आ रहा है, मेरे अंदर से घूम के वो वापस उतर जा रही है. So that what are we? We're just containers. Or if, in another words, if you want to look at it, it's like a छाननी. जो चीज़ ऊपर रह रही है वो रह जाएगी, जो नीचे जानी है वो नीचे चली जाएगी, बट वो एक कंटिन्यूअस फ्लो है और आप छाननी हो, आप छाननी हो, बिकॉज वो जो पोर कर रहा है ऊपर से वो भी अल्लाह है, जो ऊपर चीज़ें रह रही हैं वो भी अल्लाह की तरफ से, जो जा रही है नीचे जो कंटेनर रखा है वो भी अल्लाह का है. सो लाइक देयर इज नो, देन इट डजंट फील लाइक लॉस. So then, for example, if you have your heart set on a beautiful, on like this, say you're in a difficult point in your life and you have just, and you're looking for a job or some means to earn, and maybe you've just launched your business and you found this beautiful opportunity and you are saying, आपने इतने alhamdulillah के नफल भी पढ़ लिया और शुक्र शुक्र, I found this opportunity, I found this opportunity, and it feels beautiful, it feels amazing, and then this opportunity doesn't happen. Ekdam say, and that's what we're trained to do, because this opportunity did not happen. That must mean that there is no way out. That must mean कि मैंने मुझसे वो गलती हो गई है. That must mean कि अल्लाह ताला मुझसे नाराज हो गया. That must, but मैंने तो आपसे इतनी दुआएं की थी, तो क्या क्यों नहीं हुआ? So, but this opportunity, if we were to, so that's one scenario. And in the same scenario, if we are like, we're standing here, हमारी आंखें, हमारी gaze in our Rabb's eyes, and we're saying, okay, Allah Ta'ala, this is what I want. Make this happen. So this opportunity has come your way. It goes through you. The moment it starts coming your way, the moment you receive that message, what's the first thing? You say, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. You are freeing that energy because you're not attaching anything to that energy, because you know वो energy लाने वाला कौन है. अगर वो नहीं हो रही है तो आपको पता है वो energy जा कहाँ रही है. You know कि आपकी आंख आपके रब के आंख के अंदर है और आपको पता है कि अगर वो चीज़ वहाँ से जा रही है तो ये तो हिसाब जो हमारे अल्लाह ताला है वो तो एहसान करने वाला, वो हिसाब नहीं इस तरह नहीं रखते. सॉरी. सो वो, और वो डेट्स नहीं रखते. अगर उनके पास कोई चीज़ जा रही है तो वो वापस आने के लिए जा. So in that moment, when the moment we train ourselves to say innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon, it feels like this big, almost like a pessimistic point of view. अभी आई भी नहीं है मैं इसको innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. But look at it, because हमें बताया गया है कि innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon is for people who are going back to Allah Ta'ala, for people who are departing. It's not true though, is it? Because in one inhale that we have, we depart. And we exhale, we come back to life. We are departing and arriving in every breath. But because if ego were to understand this, my God, it would go crazy with worry. Which is which happens to people. They have deep anxiety, and what's it called when they're like deeply, zukam bhi ho jaye, they feel they're going to die. There's a name for it, right? And because we know that we don't even own our breath. So then it's easy for us to say, innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. जिसने दिया सांस वही उनके पास वापस जा रही है. और look, your breath teaches you so many beautiful things. You inhale, when it goes back to him, another one comes, you see. It is a beautiful, continuous, infinity flow of energy anyway. And so why do we hold on that? Because again, I've opened this beautiful surah, ayah in Surah Kahf, innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon, to hai hi, jiske upar hum log baat kar rahe hain. But this ayah makes me, you read surahs, and they're beautiful surahs, and they're all like beautiful, they're zikr, it's zikrullah. But there's some ayah, just depending on who we are, it just grips your heart. And it says, it's ayah 46 of Surah Kahf, which is al-malu wal-banuna zinatul hayat ad-dunya wal-baqiyatu salihat khairun indaka rabbika sawabun wa khairun amala. Wealth and children are the adornment of this worldly life, but the everlasting good deeds are far better with your Lord in reward and in hope. It's such a glittering show this world is, no? जहाँ देखो एक अलग तमाशा लगा हुआ है. अपने अंदर, अपने घरों में देख लो, अपने कमरों में देख लो, रात को सोते हुए अपने तकियों पे देख लो, पूरे पूरे सोप ओपरास चल रहे होते हैं. हर तरफ, it's just this being in this crazy marketplace where there are sellers and merchants from all over the universe selling you this. मुझे देखो, मेरे साथ बैठो जो, मुझे देखो. And you're like, it's this glittery show that keeps distracting us and that we get attached to so easily. Because remember, one of the root words of insan is the one which gets attached easily. And it's not a failure to get attached easily. Because as we've just understood, it's an ego, and मुझे ego death नहीं समझ में आती है. मुझे ego friend समझ में आती है. क्योंकि एक बच्चा है जो भी अपनी गोद से निकला, वो परेशान हो गया है कि मैं कहाँ हूँ, and I must hold on to things and must attach myself quickly to things so I understand who I am. So I know who I am and that I'm different from all of these. So एक हम लोगों का एक to not get lost, we attach ourselves to things. And the ego wants to, it's anxious to. It's almost as a little child नहीं होता जिसको candy shop पे लेके जाओ. And you go, मुझे ये भी चाहिए. But when there is an adult who comes in and gives them 2 out of 3 candies and then sits with them and says, I promise you I'll bring you back to this candy shop every Sunday. Every Sunday. Now have those 2 candies and let's go. This adult self is who we're asking ourselves to be, who we're asked to be as Abdullah, to teach our human selves, the small little kids who go crazy in candy shops, to teach them, hey, first of all, trust me. Look at the small interaction between that adult and the human. What are the 3 or 4 things we established? The first one is that bacha will not believe the adult unless the adult does not stand by their promise of bringing them back to the candy shop again and again. So that means that in that moment, that adult is, of course, our adult self. That means our Allah self. That means our Allah is saying, and that's what they say, कि कभी नहीं हो सकता. Inna ma'al usri yusra. In that difficulty, not after it, not before it, not through it, no. In the same beach that is difficulty, there's another beach of asani. Inna ma'al usri yusra. That means कि Allah Ta'ala ने हमसे ये promise किया है कि if not this candy shop, I will keep bringing you to candy shops every Sunday. That means that the flow that comes from Allah goes through us and goes back to Allah, will never stop until we have our breath. That is our Allah's wa'da to us. He is Ya Azizul Hakim. He is Ya Ghaniyul Mughni. He is Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum. He is Ya Rahman Ya Rahim. ये उनका वादा है. This is how he reveals himself to us, is through these names. And why names at all? Because it helps us understand who our Rabb is. So उनका वादा है कि ये नहीं है कि अगर आज आप 2 कैंडीज खाओगे instead of everything that you want, कि आपको अगले हफ्ते कैंडीज नहीं मिलेंगी. नहीं, वो कह रहे हैं मेरा बात है ना, मैं लेकर रहूंगा, मेरी बात सुनो. So the first thing in this conversation, we trust the entity जो कह रहा है कि आज नहीं, अगले हफ्ते. But खाली हाथ भी हमें दुकान से वापस नहीं वो लेके जाए. वो 2 कैंडीज हैं. हाँ, अगर हमें वो 2 कैंडीज नजर ना आए और वो 15 कैंडीज नजर आए जो सामने हमें नहीं मिली, that's ला इलाहा इल्ला अंता सुब्हानका इन्नी कुन्तु मिनज़ ज़ालिमीन. And we don't even need to believe कि whether this thing is good for me, whether it's beneficial for me. Forget all of that. देखो कि आपकी नजर किसके ऊपर है, बस. Just understand आप किसकी आंख में देख रहे हो और किधर से वो चीज आ रही है और किधर से वापस जा रही. And so you must, like, that means that when you lose something closest to you, your dearest relationships, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, वो कौन थे यार? सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम. वो कौन थे कि जो जिनका बेटा अभी फौत हुआ है, वो स्माइल और लोग उनके ऊपर हंस रहे हैं और उनका मजाक उड़ा रहे हैं और उनके ऊपर इन्ना आते हैं ना कल कौसर, उनके ऊपर एक सूरत आई है, वो स्माइल करना शुरू हो गया आसमान को देख के. उनकी नजर कहाँ है? His nazar is not on the body of his child, is it? His nazar is on the creator of his child. He knows. He knows. That there's a constant flow of energy from him, through him, back to him, through him, back to him, through him, back to him. So who are we then? Portals. And so every time we receive something that we love, हमें अपनी हमारी दिल की एक जो बहुत बड़ी एक आस थी वो पूरी हो गई है. What do we say? The two things, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. And then when we experience what we feel to be loss, I'm not denying the feeling of loss. We are human. And so we allow ourselves to feel the pain of that separation, feel the pain of that loss. It does feel like आपका की बॉडी में से कुछ टुकड़ा गया है. It does feel like आपका एक part missing है. It feels all of these are valid. And when after we allow ourselves to feel it, there will come a time with practice, जब आपकी नजर अपने टूटे हुए दिल या अपने दुखते हुए दिल या अपने दुखते हुए जिस्म से वापस उनकी तरफ जाएगी जो आपके सामने खड़े हैं. और वापस आपके अंदर हिम्मत आती है जब आप उनके सामने खड़ते हैं. There comes a time even after loss you can look into his eyes because you know whose eyes you're looking into and you say okay, it's difficult but innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. आपकी तरफ से आई है या वापस. For us to prepare for when that happens, because loss is promised. It's not an if and a but, and what we perceive to be a loss. So if we can prepare ourselves for releasing our attachments with things that we love and the things that we have right now, then we get into the practice of accepting that release when it is meant to go back to Allah. And the biggest one, which I have not yet to experience, but I'm preparing myself to experience it because Maut is promised. It's not a big mystery. It's for my parents. And I have children that I love. I have parents that I love very, very much. I have my sister that I love. I have her kids that I love. So many things that I love. Innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon to every one of them. And I really, really love my health. Innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. I love and I did this, and I was sharing this with Sophie. I said, I felt like about 4 days ago, and when you're ready, the most beautiful thing is to die before you die, which is stand in front of the mirror when you are ready and when you feel it. And you mourn your own death and you say, which is what I did. I was standing in front of the mirror. I don't know kaise hua, but it was the most intense mourning that I experienced because I said, Ye le meri aankhein, Allah Ta'ala, innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. Ye le mere kaan, innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. Ye le mera damag, innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. Ye mere haath, innalahe. एक चीज को मैंने innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. मेरा दिल, मेरा जिस्म, मेरा ये ले लो, मेरी टांगे ले लो, मेरा सब कुछ ले लो, innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. And in that moment, and here's what I want us to feel into, in that moment, as you are saying, innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon, to everything that you love, you know what you're receiving in that moment. Inna ma'al usri yusra, in it. Inna ma'al, within it, in it, not around it. Whatever. The moment you say innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon, you have already received the return of it. You see? Magic की बात ये है कि वो अगर यहाँ पे अगर एक इन्फिनिटी फ्लो है जो आपके रब के पास जाके वापस आपके थ्रू आके वापस रब के पास जा रहा है, वो आपका इन्फिनिटी फ्लो जब आपसे एग्जिट कर रहा होता है टुवर्ड्स योर रब, and you say innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon, आप वो फ्लो अपने रब के पास पहुंचने से पहले रब एक और फ्लो एक्टिवेट करके आप तक पहुंचा देते हैं कि ये हो ना कि मेरे बंदे ने जिस भरोसे के साथ रिलीज किया अपना फ्लो मेरी तरफ, उसका दिल एक माइक्रो सेकंड के लिए खाली ना रहे, एक माइक्रो सेकंड. So the moment you visualize this, it's a light leaving from your heart and you say something that you love dearly, it's innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon, before the last part of it has left. If it was a train engine, before the last carriage of it has left your heart, a new train has already entered. And this happens when you say innalahe wa innalahe. At the time that we are perceiving to be lost, when we keep our eyes on our Rabb and we say innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon, Subhanallah, as Allah is my witness, as I am my Allah's Raham ka witness, that there is no way कि उसी moment पे आपको benefit ना receive. The practice is to keep our eyes, अपना focus उनकी तरफ, बस focus उधर देखो, उनकी तरफ. जैसा नहीं होता है कोई मेरा बहनों में जब I gave the example of the छोटा बच्चा also, but it happened to me just a year ago. 7 months ago, I went to get my nose pierced through a friend of my sister's. Beautiful, beautiful girl. I've known her since she was a child, right? We've all grown up together. And मुझे बहुत डर लग रहा था. वो उसने ऐसे वाला नासा मैंने उतार दिया. And she kept saying one thing. She held my hand very tightly. इससे कुछ नहीं होगा. You keep looking at me. Keep looking at me. Keep looking at me. That's it. And the nose pin, वो तो खैर मैं voluntarily गई थी. मुझे शौक है अपने आप को तकलीफ पहुंचाना. But I'm learning. Anyway, we're all learning. But, in that moment, as your eye is fixed, the pain does not feel as intense, I promise you. And when it does, you allow it. You allow it. शिकवा करने तो उनसे करो, गिला करने तो आंखें उधर रखो. But the moment you say, okay, आपकी तरफ से आइए, आपने अपनी attachment उनके साथ release कर दी, वापस आ, आपके अंदर वापस आपको benefit मिल गए. That's the formula. And another thing that I've realized is that most of the times that I talk about things which are like at a conceptual level, it feels like it's not personal. And I know most of our story or some of our stories here on our life stories here on the call right now. But everything that I'm talking about has been experienced. It is not theoretical. It's like, you're living on the 6th floor apartment and there is somebody, and the 6th floor apartment people feel amazing about the skyline that they see every day. And there's somebody living on the ground floor who have completely different landscape viewing, whatever going out for them. And then one day, I don't know, there's big thunder, whatever. And those people are forced to come, and I don't know, somehow they lose their apartment. They're forced to come to the ground floor and they begin to see how gorgeous things are from the ground floor as well. I'm saying sometimes just changing a point of view changes your life perspective. When I learned that innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon, by applying it in my life and by experiencing the benefit of it, is why I'm sharing it with you. Innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon does not belong with the dead or for the dead. It belongs to us with every breath. And we don't have to wait for a parishani or a musibat to come to say innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. No, we get into the practice of releasing our attachments to the things that we love right now with the faith that जिसने हमें ये beautiful चीज़ दी है, अगर जब ये जाएगी या अगर जब ये अगर जाएगी, वो सब अलहदा वर्ड ही नहीं हो रहे हैं. अगर जब ये जाएगी, I guess that's how it's meant to be spoken. So अगर जब ये जाएगी तो जिन्होंने मेरे पास दी है उनके पास ही वापस जाएगी. तो जिन्होंने मुझे पहले दी थी वो और दे देंगे. So you begin practicing that. Now what that also enables you to do is share what you have more. Innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon actually frees you up with sharing what you have more. Whether it's your favorite clothes or your time or your love or your kind words. Because you know that it does not, ये हुआ नहीं कि आपने अपना बेस्ट जोड़ा पैक करके somebody that you love को दिया. ये हुआ नहीं कि वो आपके भी गाड़ी में लिफाफा पहुंचा नहीं होगा और अगला गिफ्ट आपके लिए आपके घर में बगैर मांगे. And I have experienced it as Allah is my witness. Subhanallah. Subhanallah. And every time ये हुआ नहीं. And इसका क्या मतलब है? इसका ये मतलब है, and I was just sharing again with my friend Sophie, कि after about 5-6 years, My bank balance at the end of last month was mashallah in a 2-digit number. It was so funny. I was like, what on earth is going on? Not, like hundreds में थे, okay? Pakka. And I'm like, ये अल्लाह ताला ये हुआ क्या है? हुआ कैसे है? And the most beautiful thing, because I've been practicing this. I've been practicing this. Any part of what I'm sharing, any part of spirituality is consistency practice. बताऊं क्या मैंने किया? मैंने कहा अल्लाह ताला, oh wow, I have innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. तो इसका मतलब है कि अगर आपने मुझे अब आप होता है ना कि जिस वक्त आप कोई फॉर एग्जाम्पल यू वांट टू रेनोवेट योर होम, यू वांट टू अपग्रेड योर लंच, व्हाट इज द फर्स्ट थिंग दैट यू डू? यू एम्प्टी इट because you want to renovate your life. You'll empty it. So that beautiful things that you love will come in. मैंने कहा अल्लाह ताला आप मेरे साथ, मुझे तो पता ही था innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon, आप तो मेरे साथ ये कर रहे हो, आप तो मेरा पूरा बैंक अकाउंट ही रेनोवेट करो. आई लव दिस. थैंक यू सो मच. थैंक यू सो वेरी मच. आखिरी जो जितने 1500 थे मैंने उसका भी चिकन बांट दिया लोगों को. लाइक ये रेनोवेशन चल रही है बहनों भाइयों, बिकॉज कोई वजह ही नहीं हो सकती है, ये हो ही नहीं सकता कि हंड्रेड्स में, अनलेस देयर इज अ बिग रेनोवेशन एंड प्लान. और उनका प्लान का मुझे नहीं पता. सो innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. And okay, so sorry if you guys were anticipating a big millions or 1 million, that's not happening right now. But I know it's happening right now because because my energy is telling me it's happening right now. And because जिन्होंने वो दिए हैं और जिनके पास वो गए हैं, जो गए जाने की वजह ही वापस आने की. हाँ Fatima, I know you were like, oh my God, did she manifest millions? I have before, many times before. Out of nowhere, I've manifested millions because I have manifested many times I have received millions from my eye on Allah Ta'ala, and therefore I'm confident. Always, we all will, Fatima. Always. That's the entire goal. But the goal is the practice of innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon is when I receive the first $1 million, pounds, whatever. It had my first thing, the Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, of course, innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. It has to be done simultaneously. That's when you begin to have fun. That's when you're not attached to or worried about your bank balance depleting. I was having this conversation with another friend. What he was saying was, I really like it when I have less money, because when I have a lot of money, then I get anxious. कि उसको save कैसे करें? Then I get anxious कि उसके ऊपर add होने चाहिए, कम नहीं होने चाहिए. Then I keep counting. मेरे थोड़े होते हैं तो मेरे पास है ही नहीं इतने, तो फिर मसला कोई नहीं होता. But we don't realize it's nothing to do with big money or lots of money or less amount of money. No, it has to do a lot with our attachment and our fear of it. So the moment we release our fear at the time of receiving anything, when we release our fear, we free ourselves, we let that thing breathe also. Because that relationship in itself is energy, that money in itself is energy, and we put too much pressure on it. When we want it too much, when we hold on it too strongly, we suffocate those energies. Or so whenever it comes, you say, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon, in the same breath. Use inhale, exhale if you can. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. In the same breath, you also released it from any expectation that you would have with it, because आपकी नजर आपके सामने वाले के पास है, जिन्होंने दिया वही उनका काम है संभाल. So this beautiful release that we practice with innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon, and make this to be as often as we say Alhamdulillah, Inshallah, Mashallah. As often. To a toothpaste khatam hua. Light, by the way, because the one thing that you can depend on Pakistan is load shedding, right? Excellent point to practice it, guys. Excellent. Or lambe ishare in traffic jams. So I'm giving you like practical tips, because both of them are extremely annoying for us, right? But they were never ours to begin with. Kisne aapko lata, kisne, this ease that you want of the light coming and going whenever you want is not something that has been promised to us. It's something that we have or we don't have. So when the light goes, innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. When the light comes, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. When you're stuck in a traffic jam, innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. And when you're going onto a long road trip and the roads are free, and they were not meant to be free, but somehow you're like making excellent headway, even then, innalahe wa innalahe rajeyoon. Because what happens is, when you're going on that road, practical story, when you're going that road and there's not enough, there's not a lot of traffic, you're making excellent headway, you say innalahe wa rajeyoon. When you reach that traffic jam, subhanallah how that traffic jam clears for you. Subhanallah how you get through it. You're like, you to kam as kam, you even message, it's like, mujhe kam as kam 20-25 minutes lag jayenge. Then you're home in like 7 minutes. It's like, what happened? You don't even know what happened. Because you're not in the practice of holding on to your attachments of free roads, empty wallets, free full wallets, happy children, non-happy children, great health, not happy. You're not in the practice of holding on to things. आपने बस अपने आप को इतना पोर्टल बनाना है, इतना लूज करना है, रोज की प्रैक्टिस करनी है, रोज दोबारा से पैदा हो as many times as possible. And keep your eye. जब आप पैदा होते हो सबसे उठते साथ ही किसको देखते हो? अल्लाह ताला को. Wow, hello, hi, I'm alive. Thank you for allowing me to be born. And then look, just wherever you are, just look to the outside world. I call it the outside world because अभी आप पैदा हुए. Whether it's a tree or a cushion or your child, wherever you are in that moment. चलता हुआ पानी अगर आप मुंह धो रहे थे तो. And you will notice the wonder with which you look at it. It's as if a new child has been born. And it's beautiful. And then you realize that you can receive it and release it anytime that you want. And that's what we're teaching ourselves to do. That's the practice. Okay. So does anybody else, do you guys want to say anything or share anything? Anybody? Okay. Does anybody want to make dua, please? मैंने तो बिल्कुल innalahe wa rajeyoon वाली दुआ करनी है. Okay, let's do it. Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir ready or not? Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka hamidun majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka hamidun majid. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. يا الله يا رحمن يا رحيم يا حي يا قيوم يا حي يا قيوم يا حي يا قيوم يا حي يا قيوم برحمتك استغيث. الحمد لله رب العالمين for all the things that you've given us. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen for our beautiful hearts. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen for our beautiful breath. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen for our beautiful sight. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen for our beautiful hands. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen for our beautiful words. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen for our beautiful bodies. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen for our beautiful parents. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen for our beautiful children, our beautiful friends. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen for our beautiful siblings. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen for our beautiful trees. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen for our beautiful pets. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen for all things of beautiful food and beautiful water. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen for the grass and the sky and the birds. Alhamdulillah for the beautiful air. Alhamdulillah for all the beautiful friends that we have and all the relationships that we have. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen for your beautiful Quran. Thank you for speaking to us. And thank you for trusting us and enabling our hearts to receive your word in a way that mountains could not. Subhanallah. So thank you for placing your trust in us. Thank you for believing in us, and thank you for continuing to believe in us even when we can't find enough resources to believe in ourselves. Thank you for not letting go of our hands even when we find ourselves in the deepest depths of darknesses. Thank you for being that one speck of light that will refuse to go away. Even if we fight and shout and scream at you, we know, Alhamdulillah, there is one entity, you, Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Rab. हम लोग आपके साथ लड़ाइयाँ कर लें, हम लोग आपको धक्के भी दें और हम लोग आपको जितना भी कह लेंगे हम आपसे नहीं बोलते, आपने तो वहाँ से हिलना ही नहीं. And for you, for being our Rab, you're the best Rab. Like that's what I said. You're like the best Allah Ta'ala anybody could have ever hoped for. Because it's just, Alhamdulillah Allah Ta'ala for loving us and for loving us continuously in times when we find it very, very hard to love ourselves. And Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen for forgiving us at times that we find very, very hard to forgive ourselves. And Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen for being soft with us and to us at times when our hearts are our hardest. And Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen for continuing to just be there for us even when nobody else has, and even when we don't want you to be there. Like, chale then. I want myself to do the worst thing right now. And you're like, Acha, you can do the worst thing. I'm still standing here. So thank you for not leaving our side here. Because without you, we are lost. We are not lost without our parents and our children and our health or our wealth or our resources, our knowledge, our iman. Actually, we're not like in any forms of it, we're not lost. But if we don't see you, if we don't feel your hand in ours, and if we don't, when we open our eyes, know the eyes that we're looking into, and if we don't hear your voice, which tells us all the time that we are loved, then we are truly lost. So, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen for helping us not to feel lost or get lost. And then when we did get lost, thank you for finding us. Thank you for sending out the bulletin to like all the freshers everywhere. It's like, dude, I lost her. Go find her for me. And Alhamdulillah for all the ways that your freshers worked in crazy ways. Sometimes I really went overboard, I must say. Sometimes just make sure that I find the way back to Sirat al-Mustaqim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin for being the Allah that you are. Because I swear to God, had you been any other kind of Allah, I don't even know where I would be or where we would be. So you're like the best Allah anybody could ask for. Seriously, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, the best, the best, the best, the best. And I love you. Love you so very much. I love you so very much for being my mother and for being my father and for being my sister, Allah Ta'ala, for being my parent, for being my daughter, for being my son, for being my friend, for being my soulmate, and for being my soul tribe. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. صلى على محمد وعلى محمد كما صلى على إبراهيم وعلى إبراهيم وعلى